saying something that's not necessary. I have a quote book that I keep, and every time I read something or I hear something or someone shares something with me that is important and significant and it resonates with me and I get something out of it, you know, kind of like you hear what you need right in the right moment. When I have those moments, I add it to my quote book. And one of my absolute favorite quotes, I think about it all the time, is when you're thinking about saying something about someone, weigh it against these three things: necessity, truth, and kindness, and let nothing pass your lips without a 2/3 majority. In other words, if you can't say, I'm being truthful and I'm saying something that's necessary, that's 2 of 3, then don't say it. If you can't say, I'm being kind and I'm being truthful, 2 of 3, you don't say it. And so if you think about, if you are asserting undesirable information, sometimes we just say things that we shouldn't say because it's not nice, it's not truthful, or it's not necessary. Or if we're being critical, if we're criticizing traits or abilities or personalities, those types of things that are said can be very hurtful. And sometimes it's unintentional. Sometimes we think that we're joking and we say something we find funny and it's very hurtful to someone. So it's not always an intentional, pain-causing statement, but sometimes inadvertently we do cause pain. Okay, so I want to ask you a couple more questions here. Do you think this works? Let's think quickly about aggressive communication. Aggressive communication is communication in which speakers demand their own way, attack other people's self-concepts, or use words to cause pain. So think about someone in your life that is an aggressive communicator. The first person that popped into your head is probably the one you need to think about. So are they effective communicators? Is the person that you just saw in your mind when I said that, do you think that they are effective in what they're trying to achieve? I would argue no. Because people that communicate aggressively are trying to gain or maintain power, often by force, and power is something that you earn, expressing frustrations or bottled up emotion. So, they just blow up. Or they're sticking up for their own rights. But not being assertive, but being aggressive. I had to make sure I was going to say that right. And then the you did it first. Often aggressive communicators will play the blame game. Well, you did it first, so I was just responding the same way. It's contagious. None of those are effective. And so when you are faced with an aggressive communicator, how do you respond? I can almost guarantee you respond by avoiding them, you respond by defensive posturing, you respond by anger. That it does not work to approach a communication situation with aggressiveness. It just doesn't, it's not effective. What about argumentativeness? The definition is the tendency to argue constantly, which undermines effective listening and credibility. So again, I would argue, no pun intended, I would say that the tendency to argue constantly is absolutely going to undermine listening and credibility. If all you ever do is argue, no one is ever going to want to have a conversation with you. So if this tends to be you or tends to be someone with whom you have a relationship, while the disagreement is taking place, be careful of these things. Don't demean the other person. State your point tactfully, so calmly, respectfully, appropriately. Don't interrupt. And I'll tell you, argumentative people tend to be interrupters. So, you never get your point in and you never get a word in edgewise because they're constantly interrupting you to argue with you. So don't be that person. Monitor your voice level and maintain emotional control. So watch your tone of voice. Watch your emotions. Are they in check? Are you keeping them calm and cool and collected? And choose your words carefully. Arguers tend to just say the first thing that pops into their head because it's based on their emotion. So choose your words carefully to balance that out. Okay, so finally we're moving into the de-escalation and termination of relationships. So we've looked at some of the other elements, the escalation, the maintenance, the de-escalation, so we're moving through them. This basically, if we're looking at de-escalation or termination, we're talking about responses to problems in the relationship. So again, remember that first stage is you're finding fault, you're withdrawing, you're becoming complacent. So the first signs of relational problems, that's the de-escalation process. It's the decision to end a relationship is the easiest way to think about it. 3 major ways relationships end. There's either a fading away, so the relationship dissolves slowly as intimacy declines. In other words, you are seeing each other less, you're sharing with each other less, you are interacting less, you're investing in each other less. So the relationship just slowly dissolves because relationships require constant effort. So if you and or the other person are not putting forth the effort, the relationship basically fades away. The sudden death relationship end is usually in response to a precipitating event, such as a catastrophic turning point in the relationship, like we talked about early on. There's either that crucial positive change or that crucial negative change. Sudden death is crucial negative change. So you find out that someone betrayed you, you find out someone lied to you, you find out someone was unfaithful to you, you find out that, what you thought about the person was completely untrue, whatever. Sudden death, there was something that happened and it changed the whole game. And then there's incrementalism, which basically is, if you think about increments, it's small little sections. So problems accumulate until they're unbearable. So over time, the relationship gets worse and worse and worse and worse and worse, and you finally reach a point where you don't even know why you're in the relationship anymore. You don't even know how you got to that point. You don't even remember when it was good. And so it's just unbearable, and you say, okay, we can't do this anymore. So the reasons for de-escalating and terminating relationships, those are plentiful, and it's specific to people, it's specific to relationships, but there's definitely a model of ending relationships. So, as our final task for the week, I would like you to think about your favorite ending strategies. Identify your personal preferred strategy for relationship dissolution. So if you have to end a relationship with somebody, what is your preferred strategy for doing so? And then I would like you to create 2 lists, 5 of each. 5 positive effects of your strategy and 5 negative effects of your strategy. So if you say, my preferred strategy is just never call the person again, never return their phone calls again. Okay, so I think these are 5 positive effects of that decision, and these are 5 negative effects of that decision. And as you're doing so, consider the effects on you, the effects on the other person, and the effects on the relationship as its own entity. So don't just say, well, the positive effects for me are, and the negative effects for me are. I'd like you to consider the effects on yourself, the effects on the other person, and the effects on the relationship. So in addition to one of those 4 questions that I'd like you to choose and answer, I'd also like you to put this in the reflection post: your identified strategy, which you prefer for relationship dissolution, your 5 positives, your 5 negatives, based on you, the other person, and the relationship. So if you have any questions, please email me or post in the question forum. And I thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Bye.